Well, it's the weekend before Memorial Day weekend 2017. Finally getting back to the Tower of Power after a couple of weeks of a lot of rain and just no time to work on it. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to drop the lower unit off and see if I can't make sure, first I'm going to make sure I didn't break that cam. And if the cam is still working, not broken, I'm going to try and straighten out the alignment so that the reverse lock assembly works correctly. Hopefully didn't do any damage. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift the boat into forward gear, because forward gear is when it's supposed to be released. You're not supposed to try and lift this up. It's not supposed to be able to be lifted up if it's in, I believe, neutral, and definitely not reverse. Also, when it's in the up position, you're not supposed to shift it. And I was shifting it with it partially up. So that's why I'm a little concerned about possibly having done some damage. But we won't know until we get into it. So. All right, gonna go get some wrenches. Take this one off. I'm gonna get this out of the way so I don't knock it over. These are self-locking nuts, so that's why they stay tight. They don't ever get like loose. You know, some nuts you loosen them a little bit and they get to the point where you can take them off easy with your fingers. You notice how these stay kind of tight the whole time? That's because if you look at it, look.
Has a rubber gasket.
No, it's plastic. It's a nylon. Most likely nylon or some other type of plastic bushing in there.
How are you going to take this one out?
Well, this one I remember because now from experience comes wisdom.
From experience comes wisdom.
I remember to take this out, what you have to do is you have to loosen the other one and drop this down a little bit, and then it'll give it just enough room to take it out. And then there's also a bolt that normally goes in here, but I haven't put in yet. I never put this one back in. So right now, it should be, as soon as I loosen this one on this side, this should start dropping down. Unless it's stuck. You know, it was stuck, the original one was stuck on there good, but I just put this replacement back on, this replacement one on. So, it shouldn't be anywhere near as stuck as the other one was.
Why don't you paint it black again? Like
Well, don't forget, we don't even know whether or not we're going to keep this motor on this boat, whether or not it's going to be a good running motor that we could actually use. Wouldn't it be kind of a waste of time and money to paint the thing if it's not going to be any good to us?
No, I'm not saying Daddy, can me, Aiden, and Mark, please, have one of those freeze pops in the refrigerator? Go in the freezer?
There's not enough left.
I actually don't know whether or not there are any.
There are some. There are some.
But
Yeah, there are some.
There's what, Mark? What's the problem?
they're all melting.
No, they're not. They're freeze. Mommy put them in
They're
on Monday.
freeze.
Mommy put them in on Monday, last Monday.
Why are you yelling? I'm literally like...
Yeah!
Can we please have a pop, Daddy?
Aiden, go in the house, get 3 freeze pops out of the freezer and bring them out here.
I want a blue one.
Bring any 3 you can get your hands on and bring them to me. All right, Aiden, I got to get a rubber mallet because I got to tap this to get this
I don't know
to
what your
pop
earphones
loose.
are.
And I don't want to
Then I guess you can have
hit this with a hammer or pry on this. You see how this is broken right here? That's from somebody, not me, somebody before me. Stuck something in there to pry this apart. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't necessarily do that. I mean, I might get desperate and pry it, sure, but I'd rather not.
Are you sure it's not in your hand?
I think if I tap it with a rubber mallet, it'll come out without breaking. Well, this isn't a rubber mallet. This is a dead blow hammer.
Good job.
I'm just not going to go crazy with it. You know why it's not coming down? There's two more nuts there. You can get those from the socket. I thought that seemed like too few. There's only 3. We got 2 more. 4, 5, and then the one that's already out here would have been 6. See that? It's only been a year since I took this apart and I already forgot about those other 2. Yeah, go ahead. Try and get that one with your fingers. I'll get this one. There you go. It's already popping down. See it? See it separating?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get the nut off?
Nope.
Alright, just do this. Just gonna give this a little jiggle and that should slide down. There it is. Now I gotta get the wrench back on there. No, don't use that. Alright, don't take it all the way off. Wait, don't take it all the way off. Using the other one. Okay, for future reference, don't crawl under the motor. This has been staying up like this on its own for weeks that I've been working on this. But you know what'll happen? The one time you're underneath there, it might decide to fall. So, don't go underneath there like that again, okay?
Oh,
All right, go ahead. All right, stop. Let me get it to come down a little more again. All right.
did you get the other one?
I didn't take it all the way off yet because I don't want this to suddenly drop. Here, hold on to that. Don't drop it. This darn thing's heavy. Okay, so this rubber gasket, put this back down in here so it doesn't get lost. Okay. All right, and there's our thingamadoodle. So there is no cam on this. Oh, it's on the shaft up here, I think. I hope so. Am I losing my mind? I wonder if that lower unit came off of a boat that had power trim. And so it doesn't have the cam. So there's something right here. What the heck is it?
Take it out.
Doesn't want to come out. No, that's just a guide. That's just a guide. The shaft goes up through here. So this thing comes, this rod comes down through here. This rod would ride on the cam. That's not even in existence. It doesn't even exist. That's not good. I think I'm missing it altogether. All right, so here's what I could see on the bottom. I see this piece right here, which I was going to try and pull out. It slides into these two notches right here, but I think this is just like a top guide cover. So this hole is where the shaft, not this shaft, where the shifting shaft comes through, and then this hole is just to guide this rod and keep it in position over the cam. So the cam is supposed to sit on top of this area right here, and there's nothing there. You can see there's just a well, I don't know what that is actually. That looks like almost like a retaining nut. I think I gotta look at the parts diagram, figure this out. So here's the original one. I actually hadn't gotten around to scrapping it yet. You can look down here, you can see the same retaining nut right there. Nothing different, it's exactly the same as the one on this one. So this must be how it looks before the cam is in position. So I'm missing the cam. I'm gonna go look for it right now, but I think if I recall correctly, the cam on this one when I took it apart was already broken. It was made out of some kind of plastic or something, and I think it was in pieces. And I probably forgot. That was probably one of the things I was supposed to order over the winter and forgot to get. All right, so I've searched high and low for that piece and I can't find it, but I got a pretty good recollection that that piece was broken, so I don't think I'm gonna take two. All right, so I've searched high and low and I can't find that piece that's missing. I'm almost positive that it was in fact broken on the original unit, and so I don't think I ordered a new one. So I got two choices. I can either put the lower unit back on, only if I try and run this in reverse, it might try and tilt this motor up on me. So I think rather than do that, I'm just going to order the correct piece so that the next time I put this lower unit on, hopefully it'll be the last time I have to put it on for quite a while. So in the meantime, I figure I can turn my attention to the wiring in the boat itself and making sure that that works correctly with the motor, and also hooking up the new fuel line adapter and fuel system to the tank, or a tank. I have a couple of different tanks. I'll have to see if I have any that are in good condition. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this motor. This is going to be the first time that I've opened this since last winter. Well, this past winter, I should say. So let's see if any critters took up residence in there. I'm happy to report there is zero evidence of rodent activity in here. No foreign matter pulled in from the outside world, and no piles of mouse poop or anything like that. My wiring looks all intact. Well, at least I got that going for me. So there's really two wiring systems to this boat, or wiring harnesses for lack of a better term. The first of which is the motor wiring harness, which is this big cable right here and the plug that we've talked about in the past with all these connections right here. And this basically is what connects the boat electrical controls up in the front there to the motor, as opposed to the actual boat wiring that's independent of that in many ways. So wiring on any old boat can be intimidating, but the important thing to remember here is that most of the wiring that we're concerned with has to do with the boat motor itself, and all of the other boat wiring in the entire boat, which would include switches for lights, any lights, running lights, radios, any of that kind of stuff you have in the boat, really runs on the boat wiring, which is like an independent system from the outboard wiring. So that big cable with the plug I showed you basically goes to right here, this big cable right here. And this big cable only goes up to the control unit, which is going to be unique to this motor. So it's a Mercury control unit. In other words, that big cable I just showed you is right here, and it goes right into this unit right here, which this particular one's called a Mer control, and all of the electrical for the boat motor itself actually interfaces here. And what actually is happening here is all of the conductors in this wire, with the exception of one, go into here. Or I should say two. They go into this unit, and they basically end up going to things like the choke button on the top here for the electric choke solenoid, and the key switch, which has multiple positions. The good old, ignition on, and then the crank position for the cranking the starter. So the only two wires coming from the boat motor wiring harness that do actually interface from this to the boat electrics on this particular boat are, so you make a liar out of me. It looks like there's three wires. What we've got is we've got this little plug on the front here, and this wire that disappears underneath here, and that's what interfaces with the boat. But this doesn't have to be present. One of the things this does is it sends the pulse from way back there on the motor to the tachometer up here, which probably is junk anyways. The reason why I'm telling you all this is because that's why I can pretty much ignore this nightmare. This gaggle of wiring right here that disappears up underneath here somewhere probably goes this way up to the front and under the dashboard, and probably some of them, well, what was supposed to be right here would be a post with a light on it, a running light, and probably some of this wiring was supposed to go to that. But you got other messes here too. I'm not going to be concerned about this right now. I'm going to concentrate on this cable and checking and making sure that those wires up there work the way they're supposed to work. And what's left of these two cables right here. That's still got the terminal on it, so it's a dead giveaway. Battery connection number 1, battery connection number 2. Years of being out in the weather have changed the color of these cables. Originally, one of these was probably red, and one of them was probably solid black. This one was probably the one that was red, believe it or not, at one point. and this one was probably the one that was black. But we're not going to rely on guessing, because doing this, reversing the polarity on the battery terminals, could cook very expensive parts in that motor. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some continuity checks and verify what's what. All right, so this is a negative ground ignition system, and I know that these two big pins, which are larger than all the other pins, are the main power carrying pins. So one of these pins is going to be the ground, and one of these is going to be the main 12 volt in. So what ends up happening is the main 12 volts is sent in on one of these pins. It actually goes through part of the circuit in here and ends up coming back out on another pin and going over and feeding the key switch over there. But that's I don't want to get too far ahead of it. Basically, I want to just find out which one of these pins is the ground pin and which one is the, and by process of elimination, the one that isn't grounded is the 12 volt input pin. So, guys who work on these all the time just probably have it memorized by now and committed to memory. I'm not going to go and assume anything. So I'm going to do a continuity check. So I could do a continuity check with a regular continuity checker. In my case, I've got a multimeter. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hook on one of my clips to this big lower pin, and I actually don't have this tight yet, but this one of these two pins goes to a big cable and it's grounded right down here through a bolt. So I'm going to turn my ohm meter on to measure resistance. Okay. So right now it's showing OL for over limit, and I'm going to touch this, and there we go. Okay. So that lower pin is common to the ground. Now, just for good measure, I'm going to check from this pin to that ground and measure the resistance. And if you look back at the meter now, I'm measuring 0.687, but you see that M right there near ohms? That's megohms. So 0.688 megohms is actually 688,000 ohms. So there is some current flow to ground, but that's just inherent in the circuitry. So that's normal. So the important thing is that if you saw a very low resistance on both of these pins, that would mean you've got a major short somewhere in the motor wiring itself. Not the boat side, but the motor side. All right. So now that I know that the bottom pin, okay, now that I know that the bottom pin is the ground, what I can do is I can look at my wiring harness, and I can see that the way this is designed, this can only go on this way. You can't flip this around. Even if you wanted to try, it won't work because of the way the wiring, the pins are laid out. So if I put this on like this, this becomes my bottom pin, or my bottom connector. So this is the one that should be going to the ground cable. So now I grab those, what's left of those ugly cables in the boat. I'm going to go right to the one that I think was black to begin with, and I'm going to hook onto that. And let's see, there we go. Okay, and again, if I go to the red one, or the one that I think was red originally, and I touch to that, I get nothing. It's an open circuit, which is what I want. All right, so what I just did now is I connected this connector on here, and I'm not sure how good of a connection I'm making, and I also want to check my wiring anyways. So now I'm going to do checks again from inside here to the other connectors there.